Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Dynamics Corner, the podcast where we dive deep into all things Microsoft Dynamics. Whether you're a seasoned expert or just starting your journey into the world of Dynamics 365, this is your place to gain insights, learn new tricks, and hear from industry experts. The Power Platform is like a Swiss Army knife for businesses. It equips them with the tools to transform complex challenges into simple, actionable solutions. I'm your co-host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on March 22nd, 2024. Kris. Happy Friday. Another podcast completed. This one was a special podcast because in this case, you didn't know who the guest was. I have to do these periodic surprises. With us today, we had the opportunity to learn a lot about Power Platform, the components of Power Platform, some of the practical uses of it, as well as some of the things that you could do to learn and understand the Power Platform. With us today, we had the opportunity to speak with Mary Myers. Kris.
Yo.
Someone's at the door.
It's a nice doorbell, man.
Isn't it much better?
I dream about those doorbell noises now.
I wonder who it could be. And where did you go? Who is it?
He's here. Mary,
good morning. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us. It is a surprise. It is awesome. A surprise. And I had informed Kris I'm doing this more often to him because he texted me last night and he said, "Who is on the podcast tomorrow?" And I said, "It's a surprise. I'm not telling you, and we're going to do this regularly."
This awesome.
So we were just talking about it. He was asking, "Who is it?" I said, "I'm not telling you. You'll have to be surprised." And here we are with Mary Myers.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi,
Thank you
Mary.
for taking the time to speak with us this morning. And just for a fun fact, this is your second time being on here solo. You have been on when we did some conference recaps and other times, but you were first on with us back in October of 2022, back when Kris and I were just young children and starting out with this podcast journey. So we appreciate you being here with us since the beginning. And here we are several years later. So we think it's a great opportunity to catch up with you and see what you've been doing, where the Power Platform has been going, some of the great things that you've been doing. And I have a lot of questions because Power Platform has grown up just like we have with this podcast over the past 2 years. And I figured that there was no one better to speak to than you.
Excellent. I love talking about it. So I'm glad we get to talk about this today.
I love it. This is an awesome surprise. It's a great Friday. Great Friday to finish the week.
It is. But before we jump into it, as usual, Mary, could you please tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Mary Myers. I am the Chief Maximizer here at World Max. And really what that means is I am so obsessed with helping people expand Dynamics and Business Central with the Power Platform that I made a whole company just to kind of start doing that. I've been in the tech space for 6 years now. I guess that's about it, since 2018. And I was a super user before that. I did F&O, was AX back in the time when we were all still kids. And I was working with AX, and then I switched into the tech space. And I was an AX consultant starting off. And then that was 2018, right? And so Business Central came out right at the same time. And they said, "Do you think that you could learn Business Central?" I said, Of course I can, right? So, and then I saw this little thing called Power Platform, and they had this little connector on there called Business Central Connector. And I was like, oh, the possibilities. So that's what I've been doing for, I don't know, I guess since 2019 now.
I did not know, or I did not recall, because I don't have the elephant memory like I used to, that you worked with AX. But
Yeah.
with you being the chief maximizer, I like that term, by the way, or that title. I could see how you could make the move from AX over to Power Platform / Business Central. And since the inception of Power Platform, connectivity with Business Central, the space has been moving more and more towards it. But in your words, how would you describe Power Platform? We know that Business Central is an ERP application for businesses to use to manage their business. How would you position or explain what Power Platform is and the benefits of that to a business?
Yeah, so I think honestly, in its easiest form, the Power Platform is a set of tools that helps organizations work easier, right? Like work smarter, not harder, and really digitalize their manual processes without a developer. Like that's what the Power Platform is in its simplest terms, and it's cool because it has different components of the Power Platform, right? And there's 5, we'll count on the spot right now, 5 different components. What I always say is Power BI, like in the ERP world, I like to refer to Power BI is the gateway drug to the Power Platform, really. And the reason
now
for
we're
that
doing
is
drugs on this podcast.
Sir?
Said now we're doing drugs on this podcast.
No, we're not. We are just referencing how Power BI is really natural and easy for people to want to experience. And then once they've experienced Power BI...
You know I was teasing you, Mary, right? That was a joke. It's a bad joke.
It's a gateway
We are no
drug.
longer doing podcasts on Friday, Kris, because every time we record on Friday, no one gets my jokes.
That's true.
Everyone always tells me that I have horrible jokes. So this, Mary, is the first surprise guest for Kris, and we're going to do that regularly. And this is the last Friday recording that we're doing. So see, you have like 2 firsts or 1
2
last.
firsts.
Okay, so let's go back to Power BI being the gateway.
The point
Did
of
I
it
throw
is,
you off?
right? So for in the ERP world, reporting is everything, right? And so when you're telling somebody that you're going to give them better reporting tools, they're like, "Cool, bring it on," right? It's easy for them to accept that, right? So they get started with Power BI and they're like, "This Power BI stuff's pretty good. You mean it's really easy to just connect my data from all of like these different places, right?" And is there more? What more can I do, right? And that's kind of why I say Power BI is the gateway to the Power Platform, is because it makes people see it so easy, right? We have these really easy tools, and it can be just like making our reporting easier. I think sometimes it's hard for people to conceptualize what does it mean to digitalize our processes, right? And that's what reporting is for a lot of things, right? Like Excel gymnastics, whenever we're doing Power BI reports, it's just automating. You know what I mean? Like those types of reports. So that's how I would explain it. I think we should now edit this out.
That is great.
No, we don't have to edit it out at all.
That's how I explain the Power Platform in a fun manner and a fun Friday approach.
That's it. So we have Power BI as part of the Power Platform. You had mentioned that there's 5 pieces to it. Yeah. What are the other 4?
Parts. Okay. So the next one is Power Apps, which is, again, pretty easy for people to understand. That's going to be like what's on your phone, right? Just like you have different apps on your phone, you can create business-specific apps, and then you can just have them on your phone or like on a web browser as well, right? So basically, it's just being able to have a customized app that helps your company do whatever it is that it needs to do, again, without needing a developer. Then we also have Power Automate, which is probably my favorite component of the Power Platform. And I also think it's like the underlying premise of the Power Platform as well. And so Power Automate is going to allow you, it's like a gateway connector, like a connector between different systems that automates those processes. It's kind of like turning on like data, right? So like if I want to integrate maybe sales orders, for example, from a SQL Server into Business Central for whatever reason, Power Automate essentially is a faucet where we just turn it on. We're like, okay, let the SQL data come over here now, right? And you can kind of map different places. So that's what Power Automate does. Is obviously it helps you automate, workflow processes. But I think it's kind of cool to understand that it's just moving data. It is a way to move data, specific tables, specific properties from, those from one place to another. And then also, I think cross training is very common in like the ERP world, right? Like you're probably going to spend some time in sales, you're probably going to spend some time in purchasing. We have to be like multi-unit players, right? And so to me, that's what Power Automate is as well. Because it actually is used, because it carries data, it will carry data between all the other different components of the Power Platform, right? So you're going to use Power Automate in your Power Apps to grab data and go send it somewhere else. You can use Power Automate with your Power BI stuff, right? Like we can pump data into there. So to me, it's one of the things that makes it really cool. Like if people are like, what product should I start with in the Power Platform? I personally would recommend Power Automate because you're going to end up using it in every other thing. So it's like a good cross-training skill to have. And then we also have what's called Copilot Studio. Solid name on that. But what that actually is, it's just the PBA chatbot. They renamed it to go along with everything else, and it does some more functionality. But those are pretty cool too, right? Like chatbots that you can work with and interact with, whether it be on a website or kind of internally. You can use them in a bunch of different components. I did a session last week where I had a little Copilot Studio interact with somebody and create a sales order in Business Central.
Is the Copilot Studio is it a new name for virtual agents? Is
Yes,
that what you're saying?
exactly.
So it's in essence a chat bot.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It used to be called, for anyone that, had virtual agents previously, that's what it is now. They just renamed it to Copilot Studio. And it's not an exact swap, right? It's not like, it wasn't just an exact name change. They added some more plug-in functionalities to Copilot Studio. I say that they added it in. I think, in my opinion, they're just marketing it louder. Some of the things were always there. Sometimes they just change the names of things because whatever they called it before didn't resonate. And they're like, let's give it some actual different names and say it's new, but it's not.
Then they just added the generative AI component, right? Like that. I think that's what makes it Copilot.
Well, listen, in true Microsoft fashion, they have to change the name every couple of years. So
true.
They change the name, add functionality, and go with it. But
yeah, exactly. So they Power Virtual Agent, right? And then they also have Power Pages, which I think is really cool. And I'm doing some work on that as well. So Power Pages, think of that as like external or internal websites that you can easily put your data, Dynamics data in there, right? Like don't go create a Power Page just to have like your blog site, because that doesn't make sense. That's going to be like way too expensive for that. It's not WordPress, right? But it's similar, has kind of like similar components where it's kind of like that drag and drop type of thing. But the part that makes it really powerful is that we can plug data into it, right? So ERP standpoint, think customer portal, think vendor portal, right? These places that we want to be able to have all of our Business Central data, like open invoices, into one place that somebody can log into, an external person can log into and see their data, right? Without being actually in Business Central. E-commerce, right? So kind of same concept. So this is Microsoft's Power Platform space to kind of hit that component. So, I mean, within all these things, right? We have reporting, we have apps, we have automation, we have chat bots, and we have, Power Pages, or like external, internal, websites that allow us to get data back and forth. So that is how the power, right? Like there's so many different things as a small business that you can utilize in each one of those things and change the way that you work.
Thank you for the summary on Power Platform. I have learned so much. There are 5 components: Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Pages, and Power Copilot Studio. I'm making up a new name because you have all of the powers. You need to put a power in front of Copilot Studio.
Agreed.
And you simplified the explanation. Thank you. So now I understand how a business could leverage using Power Automate or Power platform, Power BI. I'm just going to screw it all up. But it does sound like a superhero, like Power. It's like a power. It's a superhero that's going to help you simplify some of your business processes without the need to have somebody develop a custom solution, which oftentimes allows you to also deploy it more.
It's for power
rapidly.
users.
It's for power users. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's the cool thing. So who is the Power Platform for, I think is a great kind of thing to say. And,
Great question, Mary.
What?
Who is the Power Platform for?
It's a great question, Brad. I'm so glad you asked. So it's for everyone. No, but in a lot of ways it is, right? So I think, again, from a business standpoint, a small business standpoint, or like an ERP standpoint, like your frontline workers, that's who the Power Platform is for. It can be for your developers, right? But that's not the point. It is being able to say, hey, I have a problem that only I can understand and have as much passion about this particular problem. My buddy over there in the developing room, he's not going to be able to understand how terrible it is to enter these purchase orders or these purchase invoices, because this joker's never had to do it a day in his life, right? So whenever then the purchasing person's like, I cannot work like this, but I am not a developer, right? But I cannot work like this anymore. This is like not efficient. I am made for greater things in life. So then you install the Power Platform because it's low code, right? They're like plug and play type of thing, because that person. Your eyebrows good now, Brad? I'm just
that was so random, dude.
I'm like, maybe
That's
this is really
something
good
that Kris
stuff
is
I'm
supposed
talking
to
about.
edit
I don't know. Is it that hot? Are you ready?
That was like the most random moment.
Mary, Kris was supposed to edit that out. Now you called it out and we can't. Kris, you have to cover my face up when you do that. And definitely no more Fridays.
Okay, so back to normally scheduled content. So in that, when we have something like, so the Power Platform and being able to use something like Power Automate, like the concept.
Let me do the other side.
I can't even look at you. I need to. If you can create a PowerPoint, you can use the Power Platform, right? So our purchaser guy over there that like hates his job, and the developer guy that can't help, well, we can use Power Automate or something like that, right? And so that's who it's for. That's really what it comes down to. Like, my background is not in technology. I've got my degree in business management and accounting. And very clearly, by the way that I talk, we can understand that there is not like a deep technical level of experience, like deep technical schooling inside of me. So I can learn it, right? And that's kind of who it's for. It is made for the person that's having the issue, not necessarily like the developer. But I would also say that's really cool. It's like you can have a really beautiful fusion between pro dev and like low dev in the Power Platform. So something like Power Pages, you can have somebody go in there and like do 90% of it. But because Power Pages can be extended, right, just using some like HTML code and things like that, you can have a citizen developer create it for the first or for most of it, and then have the pro developer, right, come in and like finish things off. I do this all the time with Business Central. I will have a developer create my custom API, right? If I need a custom API, I need just a little piece of function to then go and work with Power Automate. Then I'll have them do that piece, and then I'll go and do, my side. And I can still create the workflow that I need to do quicker than a developer could, right? It takes them maybe 2-3 hours, not even that. Sometimes depending on the complexity of an API, I can get a developer to create it in 30-45 minutes and then go build my flow. And maybe on my side, it just takes me a small fraction. So it's cool to be able to work it in together. Like it's for everybody.
It is for everybody. And it sounds like it does help with the efficiency of deploying a solution, which is what we try to do with the tools that we use, is we try to solve a business need or a business problem by offering them a solution that works well. And we're talking in essence about interfacing and integrating Power Platform with Business Central, which is near and dear to our hearts here on this podcast. But it also allows you to gateway to other applications as well, right? So Power Platform's not specifically geared towards Business Central, although there's a lot of functionality that we can use. You touched on portals for customer portals, vendor portals, touched upon e-commerce. It allows you to also work with other solutions. So it not only is it a gateway, it also can be something that bridges the gap between two systems or multiple systems.
Absolutely. In the ERPs, especially, right? You're going to have not just a Microsoft. I've got plenty of customers. I've got a project right now where their US company, right, is moving from Navision to Business Central, but their parent company is on SAP, right? Which no problem. They have SAP and they have BigCommerce, and we're integrating all of them together, and we don't need a developer. We're using Power Automate to be able to do that. Because in Power Automate, I totally forgot one of the most important parts about the Power Platform is these things called connectors, okay? And connector is what systems, like what can I play with? Think of connectors of like you were to go to like your Netflix channel, right? And you have all the different movies that you can watch. So connectors are kind of like this similar concept, but they're different programs. So you have like Business Central, you have Dataverse, you have SAP, right? It's all these other different systems. And there's over 1,000 different connectors on the Power Platform already. That means that you can connect your Business Central to over 1,000 other different connectors in theory. Now, does it mean that it's like makes sense for all of them? Well, no, of course not, right? But 1,000 systems is a lot, right? Now, let's say that the program that you want to connect Business Central with isn't on the Power Platform connector already, but they do have an API because it's like the 20th technology century, and like basically everything should have APIs in cloud technology, right? So if you have an API...
It is the world of APIs now. And that's, I talk with many about Business Central implementations. A big key is the integration and the ability to extend it through APIs because systems just want to talk to other people.
Exactly. And this is where I see this specifically for Business Central a lot, right? So maybe a lot of our ERP companies or other like ERP ISVs, and again, I help ISVs do this too, because I'm like, do you want to connect with Business Central? Or do you want to connect with Business Central plus 999 other products as well, right? And so your ISVs are like, yes, let me connect to everything. But if it has a cloud API, you can just wrap it up, right? Like put a wrapper on it and still use it, even if it's not on the Power Platform. So with Business Central, this is why I think it makes it so insanely powerful. And because you're using something in the Power Platform, its biggest gain is in my opinion, one of the biggest gains that you have is like that authentication. Right? When I go in there and use that Business Central connector, I don't have to set up OAuth. I don't have to set anything up. I just have to have the right license. And the same thing with the other components. Therefore, I can do a Business Central integration with a company like SAP 40 to 60% quicker and cheaper than traditional development because the Power Platform connectors are structured in that way to really lower that ability. So I think that's what's a really good scalable process for, for partners.
That's great with the efficiency that you gain with Power Platform. I have a number of questions about Power Platform, but I'd like to take it back a little bit because I have a few other questions about you and what you have done and how it may be able to help others. I commend you on being able to move from working in the business process, working with AX, and being able to start your own business on a new technology because it is relatively new, as you had mentioned. I mean, it's still in its infancy stage as far as I'm concerned, even though it's been around for a few years. So I think it's amazing that you were able to jump in and do that and pick up the application. If I were somebody that wanted to learn more about Power Platform, get into Power Platform, maybe not necessarily start my own business or start a process, where would you recommend somebody go to learn more about it, to maybe be able to do some of these flows, connectors, Copilot, virtual agent, page portal, BI, studio type things?
Yeah.
Things is a technical term, by the way.
Yeah, I love technical terms. So where I would recommend starting is there's so many different places. I started an app in a day. I went to an app in a day program. It's free. I don't know that they have those live or like in person anymore, but like Google it. Maybe we can get some like links in, the podcast or something. Cause there's some handles out there basically for Power App in a day. Right now they're running a Power Automate desktop in a day. There's Dashboard in a day. I think they're doing Fabric in a day now, and they actually don't have like just a straight up Power Automate in a day, but I've got like labs that I honestly ended up creating because I teach so much training on it. But so for all of these courses, all of these Microsoft based in a day classes, you can even find like the lab manuals online. That is a perfect place to start. Okay. In my opinion, like start with one of those. That's what a lot of people do. Because it's going to give you just a guided, right? It's going to be the best guided experience, like hands-on to first get started. Once you've gone through those, or like maybe you do an app in a day and you're like, man, I am so hooked. I love this, right? I got to learn more. I want to build more. Then you need to know like what type of learning form, like everyone learns differently, right? So I would say understand what your learning form is and then go attack that. So me, I'm a very visual person. So I'm going to go to YouTube, right? And I'm going to look up Power Apps. And as you're in there, like depending on what product you end up really like loving and like working with all the time, you will see that there are figureheads is what I'll call them, right? That kind of run across like each product line. Like if you're in Power Apps, anyone that does Power Apps, I'm like, go see Shane Young, Power Apps 911, right? And everyone's like, yep. Anyone that does Power Apps knows Shane, right? And so this is why I say, like, if you understand like what type of product it is and then kind of dive into, because you'll find these people, and even that maybe Shane's not your person, even though he's great. Again, everyone learns different. That's kind of my concept. Find somebody that explains something in a manner that you can learn, because there's so much content out there.
You just gave me the chills with all of that, because that is something that is important for people to identify when they may have challenges or struggles when they're trying to pick up new content. And I'm not even talking necessarily Power Platform. You can take that to any portion of life if you want to learn something. You referenced the learning form. You need to understand how and what environment is best for you to be able to learn and retain the knowledge or the material or whatever it may be that you're trying to learn. So that is
And staying focused.
Amazing.
You got to stay focused too.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, well, I think if you're in your learning form, it should help you as part of that with your focus, because you're doing something that's comfortable for you. Therefore, you get the excitement of learning something new, but you're also in that comfortable space, I'll call it, by identifying your learning form. That is wonderful.
Well, good. Tips and tricks, I guess, because I'm always trying to learn like different things. And I know that like sometimes like a full blog, like my brain sees all these words. I'm like, bye, done. Not going to pay attention. Also for me personally, because I don't have a really great attention span, I know that I like videos that are, I like videos. We have to just show this real quick. So live, we have more surprise guests. This is Kristen.
Whoa. Kristen, why aren't you like, we could give you the link. You could do like a live call-in. What did she say?
We were already having a fun time. You were calling me for the daily FaceTime, and I'm sitting here recording our podcast with some of our favorite people. And I was like, oh, this will be so fun. And so we just have more surprise guests. But
look at that. It's a surprise guest. Kristen Hosman, all the way from someplace tropical,
Mexico.
It looks like.
Mexico.
Whoa.
Yeah, she's all the way from Mexico.
So you guys have a daily phone call, and you didn't tell her you were recording at this time? So it's a surprise for everybody all
She's
around.
on vacation. I'm trying to give her a break from me, She needs vacation from me too. So it's a big job being my friend. It's a lot of support work that goes around.
Oh.
Yeah, your dues are due. My dues are due, she said. My dues are due.
Your dues are due.
Your dues are due. Kristen,
right.
how are you enjoying Mexico?
Back at you in a little bit, friend.
Yes. Well, I want to say bye to her. Hold her back up.
Shit. She's enjoying.
Kristen didn't want anything with us today.
Yeah, I should have. Fair.
I have to text Kristen now. Am I going to say you don't want anything to do with us now? Hold on, let me find it.
That's so funny.
What question were we on?
Staying focused and learning.
We were talking about.
Oh, that's right. So some people like, again, so when you're going on there and finding like different forums or different even people that you like, some people will have really long videos and they'll go like really in depth. Sometimes, like when I first started out, I liked really long videos because sometimes people would show me like the mistakes they were making, and like that's helpful. Or like for me personally, because I don't always have a super long attention span, I like quick 12-minute videos, you know, because I can roll through the content pretty quickly or see if like that's the one. So yeah, just switch up your learning sources.
That's great. So I just sent Kristen the link so she can join. She said she's not joining, but we'll send it to her. She's sending photos now of, you know, her
being
at the pool.
Beach. Yeah.
Yes,
She was
and,
like,
and
this
water.
this is not the move, man. This is not the move.
It's okay. We'll see if she comes on. So, no, thank you for identifying some ways that individuals can get into the Power Platform. But the key point that I took from that is identifying what's your best learning form or your learning methods for you to learn. There's many resources available, whether it be written, audio, video, step-by-step, as you talk about, like with labs and instructions. So now to kind of go back to you and your story, because it is an inspiring story, how you picked up a new technology, started your own business and went through it. We will jump back to those 5 Power Platforms, but I had a bunch of things that I wanted to speak with you about. And now I realize why you don't answer my emails, because they're probably too long. So I need to shorten them up to have like 1, 2, or 3 sentences, and therefore I'll get a reply.
Bro,
I'm just kidding.
I don't see emails from you, so.
I know. You were supposed to go along with it. It's like some of this is like a joke.
I know, but I got to call you back out on your jokes because it's Fun Friday.
It is Fun Friday.
I know. And how bad the jokes are on Friday.
Dry Friday.
Okay. I'm trying to have it lively. That's why I did my eyebrows.
Should we send you? You know what? I'll get you some brow gel. Maybe that's what I'm hearing. I'll just like I'll Amazon you some prime eyebrow
You do
gel.
have some thick eyebrows, Brad.
They're good. Girls would kill for those. Girls would kill for those.
With Florida weather, it's probably going to fluff up.
People gel. You didn't know that? You like manicure your eyebrows now.
Should I go get like threading or something?
No, you don't.
No, I'm going to keep them the way they are.
That, like if you want to spray them down, there's product.
Now, Mary's beauty tips.
Keep it in place.
Coming next on Dynamic.
Keep your eyebrows in place.
We can do anything. We can do anything.
No, this is great. We can adapt. We can change the topics as we go. But to step back to it, along the process of getting into Power Platform, or it doesn't necessarily have to come as part of the question that I have, what challenges have you faced in your journey, or what significant challenges stand out to you, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah. I kind of feel like sometimes I've deemed myself as like Rudy, like a real life Rudy in some regards is how I feel. Like I feel like I in honestly a really great way. I feel like a lot of my life has been incredible amounts of challenge, but it was for a benefit, because honestly, like that's why I am the way that I am, as far as like just being like really persistent. But in the challenges, let's see here, I think there's a bunch of them, but I'll just start with when I had my son, I was still like, I worked the day that I went into the hospital to like have him, but and like was taking finals in the emergency, not like in like the birthing suite, whatever you want to call it, right? Like basically I'm sitting here like online. I was going to school at University of Phoenix at the time, and so I was like literally like in the birthing room, like taking finals and like having a kid. And 2 weeks later, I went back to work full time. So I was in school full time and I was working full time, and I have a 2-week-old baby, and I'm doing it all by myself, right? I don't have anyone helping me. I'm just like living like the single mom life there. And that was a challenge. Let me tell you that was a challenge, right? To kind of finish through school, because it actually in total, I ended up taking 11 years to finish my bachelor's degree. And it was hard. It was really, really hard to be able to work full time and take care of this kid and like figure it all out. But that's what drives me, you know?
No, that is great. And it's congratulations on finishing. And this is something that I say regularly. A lot of things in life are a race against yourself, not other people. It's having a goal and achieving that goal. Sometimes it doesn't matter if if you're running a race, for example, if you're running a 7-minute mile or a 15-minute mile, the fact that you did the mile is the important thing. And something else you had mentioned to go back on, Kris knows I'm all into like the Stoic philosophy. I followed it my entire life, in essence, but now lately over the past year or so, I've been getting into it more because I see a direct correlation to focus, leadership,
Peace.
And the like with the Stoic philosophy. But there's also a belief with that challenges and adversity sometimes open up new opportunities, right? So you can't look at it as I have a challenge. If you lose your job, for example, yes, it's hard. I'm not saying, listen, I'm not going to say that, it doesn't affect your life if you have a family, but sometimes losing your job, you may get a better job, or you may go into a different career path, or you may go someplace else. So you have to if you look at those adversities or challenges as something that could be a positive opportunity, your life can also improve. So I'm glad that you had mentioned that as well. So look at you can like jump right into it. I'm going to send you all these books to read. You can send me gel for my eyebrows, and I will send you
Stoic
books, maybe.
Perfect.
I just finished one just the other day. Now I'm reading another book that I'll have to share. I flip-flop. Okay, so let's go back to the challenges.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
No, we were talking about the challenges that you had faced, jumping into your career, Power Platform, starting your own business, anywhere along the way. And one of the challenges that you had mentioned was.
And I start there, right? Because to your point, I think that I don't look at things as maybe as challenges. I think of them as opportunities because of that experience, it actually provided this opportunity to become super highly obsessed with being as efficient as I could be at work. Right. So I started automating processes before I ever realized that that's, you know what I mean? Because it was a necessity. So it's like ingrained in my life that like everything has to be like this. And so then when I got the opportunity to go to the Power Platform or Power Automate in a Day type of class, I was like, oh, okay, this is it. So I think that challenge was important. Then I would say the next challenge kind of once I got here that I still face a little bit today would be, I kind of call it evangelism of why people should be using Power Platform with Business Central. I saw this vision and I would go and present at every UG I could find, right? Because I was just like, this is so cool. I have to share this with everyone.
That's a user group for those who don't know the acronym.
Thank you.
I interrupt a lot too, by the way, so you have to be ready to stay focused.
I don't shut up, so somebody needs to, cut in here every once in a while. So see, but you made me lose focus.
I'll ring a bell when you do it. I'll just, you're talking too much.
Perfect. So, challenges. So in that, like people don't necessarily realize that that's what you need, right? I remember I was working with like this one company and we had a really good, they had an amazing Business Central practice. And they're like, hey, Mayor, why don't you interview? We're going to take over. We have an opening to take over like the whole US part of our Business Central. Why don't you interview that? We would love for you to interview to take over that. And I'm like, cool. That sounds great. Right. So I showed up to that meeting and had like an epiphany before that meeting. And I said, I'm not going to talk about Business Central at all. And I 100% pitched to them why we should start a Power Platform company. And they did not agree. And I did not have a job soon after. Which is totally fine. Again, that challenge at that point, I had had this concept for so long. I was like, there's only one thing that I can do right now that I lost my job. And it's just to keep doing what I've been doing. And that's how my job, my side job basically became my full-time work. So again, challenge equals opportunity.
Focus on what you can do, what you can control, right? That's...
Yeah.
Well, and also focus on what you can control and do what you have passion for, because you will, in essence, do it well. That's something that I learned early in my career. I was fortunate to have a great mentor when I first started at that point consulting, and he told me to do what you know, do what you love, and you'll do it well, and the money will follow.
Yeah.
Which was, it was inspiring. If you listen to what he was saying, a lot of people drive and they have their focus and they're doing things thinking, oh, I'm going to make money, I'm going to do this. But if you're doing something that you're passionate about, or something that you have, that you know and you're comfortable doing, and the passion's part of it, it doesn't become work. And therefore you do put in the focus, you do become efficient doing it, and it's not always the amount of time, it's the efficiency that you get, as you had mentioned. It's becoming really efficient. And then people will value that, and then the money will follow. But in essence, if you're fulfilled in life, yes, you need money to buy things, but you don't necessarily focus on the money at that aspect. So then you can wake up enriched. See, I talk a lot too.
I like it. And I like something that you said in there too, like to your point, like for the most part, I've always been like really like I guess I'm just an overworker. So like I enjoy working. I find a lot of satisfaction out of like doing something and having like a result. But if you're passionate, to your point, like you have to find something that you're passionate about. Like this, I always say like you have to do what matters to you. You can't do what matters to somebody else. You can't chase that money, because it's not going to fulfill you, and then you're not going to show up, right? Like the way that you want it. One thing that I hear people say, and I take it as like such a huge compliment, is they're like, you're really authentic, right? Like that's kind of what stands out, is like clearly there's no filter we've seen on here. And that's just, like thank goodness you cannot repeat, what is going on here, because the world's just not big enough. But that's an important concept, I think, for everyone to understand in that, right? Is that like you have to do what you love so that you can be passionate about it, so that you can show up authentically like every day. I think people often ask me, like, how do you become successful? How do you do these things? You do it by being the best you, right? And doing what you love.
I will say though, if you have an opportunity for whoever's listening, to go to a user group conference and Mary's there. I had an opportunity to see Mary present, and I'll tell you, I typically have a short attention span as well. It was so easy to see how passionate you are when you are presenting, because it showed in your presentation. I love watching it, and you were just rolling with it, right? Like it was so fun to watch you do a presentation. So you got to check out Mary's presentation, because there's Taylor Swift somewhere there.
Y'all, I was dropping "Love Is Blind" references in my thing, in my presentation, making fun of me. I was referring to myself like Trevor from "Love Is Blind," and then I get done with my presentations, and I'm like, why do I think that I should say this stuff? And then people are like, I love it. It was so great. And I'm like, I guess they like the crazy,
It's important to be relatable, I think, when you're presenting or when you're doing anything. And that's one of the things that we strive for, is you just want people to be able to relate. People do relate. People have lives. It's important to realize, which is part of the reason why we like to talk to very different members of the community here, because you see a lot of, you mentioned there's a lot of references to some of the individuals that we speak with. And, you think of them with the technology. Oh, they know this, they have all this. But the reality is we're all people. So we may know Business Central well, we may know Power Platform well in the case of what your specialty is, along with the integrations to Business Central. But you still get up in the morning, you still eat, you still have a bad day, you still get sick. So it's just important to realize that of everybody that they have this, we're not robots, we're all people. And we need to keep that in mind and understand when we're feeling a certain way, that these people that we may have that imposter syndrome type, philosophy, they're people too. So you're not.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, and I honestly, like, one of the things I think in that authenticity, I obviously always tend to overshare, but it's one of the things that like I'm so passionate about, is because I came from a very challenging childhood and background. I understand that a lot of people go through experiences and they don't see themselves like the way that they should, right? Like they think that they're not worthy. They think that they're not qualified for whatever challenges that they have faced somewhere else in their life that has nothing to do with work, right? So now they just put themselves down. And then they see somebody like, you know, when you can share that, basically is what I say, like nobody, like you can't say, oh, I'm going to be just like Oprah, right? Like I'm going to go start a company just like Oprah. But if you see like Hot Mess Express Mary over here, right? Like she says stuff, she embarrasses herself, she presents okay, like these tangible things. You're like, I could do that better than her. I don't mess up like that, like she does. I am a real person, right? I mean tangible people, like not like Oprah. So you if she can do it, that's kind of my concept, right? Like if she can do it, so can I. That's what I want people to think, that like I'm not special. Nobody's special, right? Shane, I love Shane. Shane's a good friend. I mean, Shane will tell you too, like to your point, like he's not special. We're all people. So anyone listening to this message, that's what I want you to hear right now is like everyone messes up. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know everything. I sat in a presentation yesterday giving Business Central Wave 1 updates and had to sit there on some parts being like, never use this, no clue. And that's important to know, right? So don't feel like just because you don't know everything doesn't mean that you shouldn't create content, doesn't mean that you're not good, because you are. So
that's a great message.
I don't know how to follow up with questions to that. You just left me speechless.
Great message.
Put this on the calendar, everybody. Brad was left speechless. I don't think Kristen will answer. I think from the text I received, I think she will. Maybe we'll get her on again, and she'll be ready to speak with us. So to go back to the 5 portions of this Power Platform and Power Apps.
Yes.
Right, because we have to round some of this information out. Power Automate is a great tool to allow you to automate some tasks, integrate to other systems. Mm-hmm. Copilot Studio is a good tool for creating virtual agents to facilitate stuff.
Communication, yeah, it's kind of like
AI.
working. Think of it as like a personal assistant, you know?
I need a personal assistant. Can I create like a Power virtual agent or a Copilot Studio agent that can like handle my scheduling of all these podcasts and all the emails?
Yeah, I mean, especially with the new AI stuff, right? Like create a little Copilot Studio that says, hey, check my schedule, or you know what I mean? Like whatever it is that you need. And then you just, again, create a little custom GPT prompt that says, whenever this happens, go and you give it a source and you're going to tell it to look at your Outlook calendar and like whatever like little prompt it is.
And use Power Automate.
It'll go and do that.
Whoa, can we do that? Because, I send the emails out with the invitation. I send the email out for the pre-podcast. I do all that manually because I like to spend the time and care.
When you do your poll for stuff like that, you can just have Copilot agent and give them your email, your availability.
There's possibilities there for you. Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to do like we could probably just use Power Automate. There's some things for you, Brad. There is some things. Could you do a Copilot Studio and host it up in Teams that you can talk to Teams, be like, go send the email? Yeah, you could do that for sure. But I think that there'd be better ways to probably just use Power Automate. You probably don't need fully Copilot. You could probably just have like some type of sequence, like on this, kick it off, and then I don't know, an hour after the podcast, like you say that the meeting's from like 10 to 11, and then you have an email that says at 12 o'clock, go ahead and automatically send, the thing. And then you never have to do it again. These are processes
we are talking after this.
Yeah.
It's not just necessary for the podcast. I was using that as an example. I do appreciate the personal touch of emailing thank yous and everything else. But if I could automate some other mundane tasks with this,
dude, that would be awesome.
Life would be.
You could create a virtual agent to have people communicate that way, so you don't have to talk to them if they want to schedule.
Yeah. You could create, if you guys have a website, or even you could host. You could post it. What's cool about a PVA is like you can publish it in like a bunch of different ways. You can publish it on like a website. You can publish it on Facebook, WhatsApp, like all these different things. And maybe you have a channel, and then you have people that like talk to it and be like, hey, do you want to be on Brad and Chris's, podcast? And they'll be like, yes. And then the PBA can be like, what do you want to talk about? Right. And so and then it'll capture the information, that you wanted to talk about, and do all these different
And then notify
things.
us via Teams,
like
Brad,
this.
and say, hey, this person's interested for this day, for this topic.
This person's interested. We scheduled it already, because you can have it linked to like a Calendly, right? And so then it'll go out there and be like, cool, he doesn't have these availabilities, or basically you put like your Calendly link into there, like the little guy, the PBA agent can send the link. Okay, great. Do you want to schedule? So then it can send like a little Calendly link to, you know what I mean, to the person, and they'll click on it. And then whenever that meeting happens, then they can be like, you now have a new meeting. And then you can decide,
surprise,
an option. Are we going to surprise Kris or not? Like, you can have that be an option.
Let's do this. See, let's do this. I would like to set that up. But as we're going through this, we're talking about a specific case with a podcast, but I can see how someone can do this in a business. Right now, you can take some of these concepts that we're talking about with scheduling, with follow-up emails, with summarizing and sending meeting minutes and meeting notes. There's a real practical use here for
absolutely
this platform, on top of the reporting, and then creating the Power Apps and the Power Pages, the customer portal and the vendor portal. I understand Power Pages. That doesn't excite me too much. But the Copilot, that's me personally. I mean, every business, every person will have, something that they need, right? Which is one of the great unique things about this planet is we all have different desires and needs, wants. We're going to get into psychology here. No, we won't, not today.
It's Friday.
But so now
it's Friday.
Say that again?
We don't want that. That's too much thinking.
No. Yes, and definitely way too much thinking. So with the Power Apps, you said we can create mobile power stuff, like with Business Central, right?
Yeah, so go ahead.
No, so with Business Central and Power Apps, could I create for example, like a mobile physical inventory or a mobile order entry system on my phone? So if somebody's either, if I go to like a fair on the weekend to sell some of my merchandise, if I sell product, or if I want to be, what's so funny about that?
I'm just wondering what you're selling at the fair.
Listen, I don't know. I'll make up something just to have a cool
eyebrow gel.
Or if you have mobile, if you, okay. If I have any gel showing up, I'm coming for everybody. But on your phone, so if you have like a mobile, if you have a store or something, you have sales individuals on the floor, servicing the customers. They could create orders right in their Business Central system, check the status of orders. So you could do all that type of stuff with Power Apps without a developer.
They even have one right now. You can go to GitHub. This is a really cool one. Sorry, InsightWorks, but they have you can go to GitHub. There is a mobile app barcode inventory scanner as a Power App, right? And this is the cool kind of concept. And here's what I will say with Business Central and the Power Platform. I am not saying that is the only way to accomplish some of these things, right? It is a way to accomplish something. And every company, every small business needs to assess what is the best approach for them, right? And so similar, like in this scenario, if you were a small mom and pop shop, right, or you got one Business Central license and you're going to the fair, right, like you are a small SMB trying to get up and get going. This is the most exciting and challenging time that any SMB will face, right? So can you afford a full ISV solution? You know what I mean? Like a barcode scanner? Maybe not, right? Maybe not in month 1, month 2. Is it still critical? Will it help you scale? You know what I mean? A lot quicker. Do you have the time to go and count everything? No, you don't, right? So you can use something like Power Apps to do that. I actually even created the other night. I just have issues. I stayed up way too late. I got started on something, and then I stayed up way too late building this. I am not a huge proponent of the CRM system in Business Central, but the point of it is that there is one there, right? So I kind of wanted to like look at this concept. When we use something like the Power Platform, we can kind of combine components in it. So Power Platform has things like AI Builder and OCR technologies, right? Again, that's AI, so we can combine those together. I created a Power app that scans the business card reader, right? Or like and so we capture that information and then write leads directly to like create a contact and and write leads directly to the Business Central app, right? So again, I'm a Business Central. So like next week when I go to directions, or like next month whenever I go to directions, I mean, again, I use Sales Pro. So I'm not really, I'll connect it to my Sales Pro environment, but I just wanted to like switch it around. But think about this process. I'm a small business. I'm going to a conference. I use Business Central. I don't have a third-party CRM. Don't need one quite yet. But I'm going to have like a lot of cards. I can take my phone. I can scan the business card, right? And that's going to go straight to my Business Central. And that didn't take that long. And I don't need any other license. You know what I mean? It's just like super, super easy and quick type of concept. So there's a lot of things beyond inventory. I think that's the first thing that people go to is like inventory for Power Apps, but there's a lot of other cool stuff that you can do for that just to kind of help business users.
No, there are some practical examples there, and you hit on some key points that the solution and the tool that you use is related to the problem that you have. There isn't a one size fits all solution for any problem because every business has different needs, requirements, or what's important to them. As we're talking about that, would you share with us what stands out to you as your worst implementation horror story? Whether it be something with Business Central, something with Power Platform, what stands out in your mind as the worst implementation of something, whatever that something may be, and if you have any insights as to why it went poorly, I'm interested in that as well.
It's a great question, and I'm sitting like, and it's hard.
And for the record, for any guest, this will be on every episode. So anyone who's coming on, who will be on, be ready for this. Is like the one question that everybody will get.
I try to be
Kris
really positive
ask
person.
Everybody that.
So I look at this and I'm like, I don't know that anyone like stands out as like absolute horror stories. I mean, there's moments on one or like some, but I would say when I look back, there
has to be a worst. By the way,
and so this is what I would like. There's a deal that I would say still kind of haunts me to this day. I sold a Business Central deal, and at the time, I didn't have a full I think in the end, I think that I probably didn't scope it well. I mean, I say that like kind of embarrassingly, but I mean, who hasn't been there in full transparency, right? Kind of going back to things before. It is that discovery process that gets you sometimes when you don't know what you don't know, right? And this was pretty early Business Central days, so I feel like some of us were maybe making it. We have a lot of recovery projects, and I would be embarrassed to say that I would bet that this project probably ends up in recovery. But long story short, while Business Central, I still believe Business Central was a good fit for them. They should have been in Cavallo. That's what I realized afterwards. And I didn't realize that, right? Like so anyway, so this project, they had thousands and thousands of records. I want to say they had like 10,000 items, like something ridiculous. Like if you've ever tried to load 10,000 items into the system, like the fun that is, right? And then they had like additional like modifications, and this customer was part of their own issue. Like they were very technology challenged in that, so it did not help anything. And so that's why I would just say that it was a nightmare situation, because I don't think that in the end that they, you know what I mean? I didn't do the implementation on it, but like I don't think that they had everything that they needed. Does that make
Thank
sense?
you for
I really
sharing.
want to stop this
Yes, it makes perfectly.
It's a really bad feeling. You should not make people do this.
Why?
No, I
I'm
mean,
not. When I say what was your horror story, or one of your poor experiences with it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's something that you did. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily something else somebody did. But we're just looking to hear. It goes back to the reality of it.
Yeah.
Not everything is perfect.
Yeah.
We could also be asking the question of what is your best. But some of these pitfalls, as I'll call them, that stand out, just as you had mentioned, discovery didn't go as well as it should have. Hopefully those that listen to this can pick up from some of these pitfalls so that now when they're going through implementation, they say, well, I remember they asked Mary, what was her worst experience, like worst memory of an implementation? Yeah. Again, there has to be worst doesn't mean it's catastrophic. Worst just means what was the worst experience that you had, which could be that I spelled, yes, I think I should say the word challenge, Kris. You could have spelled the customer's name incorrectly, right? That could be your worst experience, but somebody can learn from you.
No, and you're right. I'm just teasing you because again, in full transparency,
nice recovery.
It's embarrassing. That's what I would say. To this day, I'm still embarrassed by it. So learn from my mistakes. I certainly have.
That's good. The discovery is important. And then also from the customer point of view, it's also important to work with whomever's helping you. Sometimes they try to, think that they know, but they also don't know what they don't know, which can also be a challenge. And it takes working together in essence to come up with a solution, because at the end of a project, it's up to the customer to have a solution that works best for them. So it's also important to be mindful of what they know and what they can do, and let those that know it do it well, such as yourself. You mentioned directions. It's coming upon that time. Which conferences? I know you bounce around everywhere. You have all that energy. I don't know how you do it, but which conferences will you be presenting at in the future?
The upcomings here. So I am always on the road, is what it feels like. I do try to limit myself to only 2 travels a month, only 2 UGs a month is what I try to limit it to.
Only 2 a month.
Wow.
Which is insane. Yo, I have been to a user group. I have been to a user group once a week for the last 3 or 4 weeks, which is kind of insane considering like the frequency. Sometimes they're only like quarterly. But you have to bounce around for a lot to make that happen. So I will be in Dallas on Tuesday, presenting at the Dynamics Community Roadshow, their Dallas Roadshow. So I'll be there Tuesday of this. So that would be, I don't know, March 20th. I don't know, the 24th, 25th, one of those days. And
Surprise.
then I'll be at.
Just kidding.
Surprise! I don't. I'll be there. When my plane tells me to get there, I think I leave like Monday morning at like 6 a.m.
I'll take you somewhere.
Day by day. What airport? Do I need to bring my golf clubs? Is always the thing too. Like, how am I traveling? So Monday, Tuesday, I'll be in Dallas. Then I'll be in Directions. So I'll be in San Diego. And I'll be at Directions, and I've got 2 sessions that I'm giving there. One of them is going to be on extending Business Central with Power Automate, and I am presenting with Blage Colteco. I probably just butchered his name, sorry. But we're co-presenting on that. He is the product manager at Microsoft for the Power Automate connector, and him and I work a lot together. So we always like to kind of do that session. So we'll do a joint session on that. Then I'll also be doing a session on GPT and Copilot. So come check that out. So that's at Directions. Then in May, I'll be at Dynamics Con, and that'll be fun. If you're not registered, register. And then Summit, I think, is the next.
If you're not registered, register, but also use the promo code Dynamics Corner for 15% off. Did you know that we have a promo code for those that listen to this podcast?
I believe that you do. I too have a promo code, but
Shh, we're not letting you say it.
I know. This isn't my show. So we won't use my promo code.
You can put that on Twitter and we'll retweet your promo code.
Do we get points for how many like people? Like, are we trying to like hustle people in? Like, is there a contest? Okay.
No,
Because
there
if there
isn't
is
a
a
contest.
contest and I was behind, I was going to need to know.
No, there isn't a contest. What it is an opportunity for individuals to promote, to have others attend the
Or who
conference.
are
And we
thinking
spoke about it this
coming.
week,
Yeah.
who are thinking. And 15% off, if you do the math, it's a plane ticket. In my opinion, I mean, it depends on where you're flying from, what you're doing, but it's reasonable enough to say, okay, now, so what it would have cost for the registration by using one of these promo codes, you can save enough money to either get a hotel night stay with that extra money or
They could be
plane
thinking
ticket.
like, I really want to see Mary, but I don't know, it's too expensive. I just need 15% off. I remember Dynamics Corner code. Now I can go see Mary.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'll be at Dynamics Con. And then in October, we have Community Summit in San Antonio. Yeah, so that'll be in San Antonio. And there, I'm giving a workshop. Let me kind of plug that for half a second. I will be giving a workshop on extending Business Central with the Power Platform. So we have like an all-day academy course. So if you're like, yes, this is the path for me, check it out. In 7 months, you too can learn. But yeah, so we're doing a workshop there, and then I've got a couple of sessions for that. Then in that same month, I think the following week, I'll be in Scotland and going to present at the Scottish Summit.
Wow.
Whoa, I didn't even know they had one there.
Yeah.
I have always wanted to go to Scotland.
You can register. Their call for speakers may still be open.
Send me the information after this, but with it being the week directly after Summit, it may be tough because us old guys can't bounce around like all you
whippersnappers,
people that have a little more life in you. But send it to me because that's been on my list for a long time. Scotland.
It just occurred to me as I was saying this out loud, it just occurred to me that the dates are like back to back. So that'll be fun in October. I feel like I'm never home in October, but my son's going to come with me.
That'd be
nice.
Yeah.
That is nice. If I were to go, I would make a vacation out of it because if you're traveling that far, it doesn't make it worthwhile to just spend the travel time to go there for a couple of days to come back. But to have the opportunity to unwind, potentially take some time off, or even work partially while you're there, and to take some of the culture in and learn a little bit about some of these countries would be a great opportunity.
Exactly.
I would think it's funny, though. I don't know if we just looked. I have no idea when this is, but wouldn't it be funny if they overlapped? So you booked two conferences that overlapped?
That would be an issue. You know what? I would have to say we would have to do some coordinating and some jet setting, which is honestly what is probably I'm fearing is going to happen. And then what'll be great too is like the following month. I'm still waiting to hear back, but I think the following month in December, I will be presenting. It's either the SharePoint conference or the European conference. I want to say there's a SharePoint conference in Sweden. I don't know, but there's a big conference in Sweden that I'll be presenting at as well. So that's what I've got on the agenda outside of other UGs that pop up.
Wow.
No, that's excellent. You sounds like you have a busy schedule. And if anyone's interested in learning more about Power Platform, Power Pages, Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Copilot Studio, or anything else with connecting to Business Central, we encourage them to attend to see you present. But also, if someone would like to contact you directly to ask for your assistance, guidance, and input in this wonderful power superhero, I call it, how would someone get in contact with you?
I'd say probably the easiest way to contact me is to jump on LinkedIn. I can throw my email in there as well. My email is mary@worldmaxp2.com. So feel free to email me. But I'd say probably the easiest thing to do is connect with me on LinkedIn, and then I can connect you with the rest of my socials. If you're on TikTok, I do put content out 5 days a week on helpful tips and tricks for Power Platform, Business Central, that type of concept. So I do that on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. So you can find me all over the place.
That's great. Thank you again, Mary, for taking the time to speak with
It's
us today.
surprising me. Thank you so
Kris,
much.
we had a little surprise for you there, but thank you for sharing the information on Power Platform. I know I learned quite a bit more from this conversation, all bad jokes aside. And thank you again. We appreciate your time. And I will talk with you soon.
Perfect.
All right,
Ciao,
thanks,
ciao.
Mary.
Bye.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is Matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.
For greater things in life. So then you install the Power Platform because it's low code, right? They're like plug and play type of thing because that person. Are your eyebrows good now, Brad? I'm just
That was so random, dude.